Hi, I'm Sara. I'm codependent. Yes, I am. This is good. Can I say another prayer? Of course I can. Um, I'm talking on the Making Choices booklet, and there is a new edition out. Oops, I have to screen share it. So if you want to say the prayer with me, hopefully it's right there. Dear Higher Power, please remove from us everything that hinders our recovery and show us what we need to see so that we may become aware of our choices. Allow us to be conscious of your presence and to know your guidance. We ask you now to guide our thoughts, to guide our words, to guide our actions. We thank you for leading us to the Coda program, for the warm and loving fellowship, and for our recovery, moment by moment, one day at a time. That's all I have to do is one day at a time. So yeah, oh, where's my Making Choices booklet? I don't have it handy. I just have it on the computer. So I wanted to start out, it's a really good booklet. If you don't have it, the newest model, it was redone a couple years ago. And due to time, I'm going to skip over some of it. But let me screen share again. I would like to have help reading it, and then I'd like to make comments. So let me get this back and okay, would someone like to read the introduction, please?
Introduction. Many of us came into Coda Fellowship full of self-doubt. We did not trust ourselves or others, even if we had previously had a relationship with a higher power, a God of our own understanding. We may have found our idea of a higher power to be either threatening, remote, uncaring, judgmental, or punishing. That higher power did not help us trust ourselves. Often what we affirmed in our self-talk was a bombardment of abusive, self-destructive, and self-defeating messages. Over time, repeating these invalidating statements to ourselves created negative beliefs about who we are and how we see ourselves in the world. We offer this second edition of Making Choices in Recovery to the Fellowship with Love. It represents our expanded understanding of ways to work the life-saving Coda program with a particular focus on working steps 6 and 7. We hope individuals and meetings will find the new expanded booklet a useful tool for change. Thanks for letting me read.
Thank you. I did want to talk about, well, when I got to Coda, oh dear. I was a mess. I had a lot of self-doubt. I didn't trust myself. I did trust other people, sometimes putting them on a pedestal and having expectations that humans can't fill. So that was not good either. The good thing about not trusting myself in the beginning was that I had to trust something. And so I ended up, I was messed up about God in the beginning, but I ended up remembering prayer and turning things over to my higher power and asking for guidance. And that way I'm off the hook if I do make a mistake. I believe that if I have good intentions and if I'm working the program, my choices will be healthier than if I don't. So this booklet is about steps 6 and 7. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And step 7, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. And there'll be more on that later. Let's see. It said in the previous part, I used to be bombarded by self-destructive and self-defeating messages. And that was true. I bombarded myself. like I said, I trusted others, but, and, talking with my friends, recovery friends, and my sponsor definitely helped me make choices, better ones than there's, two heads are better than one, especially when one's my higher power, which I believe my higher power talks through other people. So I'm grateful to be able to go to meetings and listen and find my own truth. So, the steps 6 and 7 obviously follow 4 and 5, 4 in which I make an inventory. And I can also use these steps as part of my step 10 inventory and do the steps really quickly on whatever issue I have there. So that's where we're at, is 6 and 7. Let's see. By the time we reach step 6 and 7, we have experienced enough recovery process to believe we may have choices, even if we don't feel entirely serene or happy. I didn't come in entirely free, serene, or happy. I was miserable. But through working the program, serenity, peace. I always prayed for peace, and I was depressed for 37 years, I think is the count. But it's gone now for the most part. I still have moments, but it's not like constant like it used to be. So in this booklet, it talks a lot about, in that first part, it says this is what got me on this book. Higher power, in this moment, I am feeling worthless. Please take this belief from me. And I didn't know you could pray like that. I was shocked because I thought my prayers had to be thank you and please bless everybody in my life. And here I could say to my higher power, I'm feeling worthless. Isn't that wrong to feel worthless when I'm a child of God? I mean, I have a lot of right and wrongs in my head, and I'm really trying to stick on the gray or the colorful spectrum, the rainbow, and say, oh, that feeling is just blue or green or purple. So anyway, that's an aside. So I didn't really understand choices as far as step 6 and 7 go. Yeah, I do need to be entirely ready. But what choices do I really have? So there's more, let's see. There's from fear to faith, and then there's from shame to acceptance. And I'm going to skip fear to faith because I might come back to it if I have time, but I'm talking endlessly. So let me screen share the shame to acceptance, because acceptance is so important to me. And shame, I'm not really acquainted with in my past. I felt horrible, but I didn't identify it as shame till I got here. And acceptance is fabulous. Would somebody please read From Shame to Acceptance?
From shame to acceptance, many of us have experienced life as a series of maneuvers to avoid feeling shame. Even when we constructed elaborate walls to protect ourselves from the scrutiny of others, an inadvertent slight by another could crush our defenses and send us into a tailspin of fear and shame. We often held on to shame for days, months, and even years. Working the first 5 steps of the Coda program helped us to become aware of some of our codependent patterns and characteristics. We began to recognize how they developed in childhood and persisted and deepened in adulthood. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, offers us a beginning to replace our wall of shame with the healing power of acceptance. Step 7, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings, invites our higher power to work within us. We offer the following categories for reflection: my body, my emotions, my thoughts, my spirit, my integrity, my sexuality.
Okay, hopefully we'll get to all of those. There's individual sections. Definitely my codependence developed in childhood. And like it said, it persisted and deepened in adulthood. I was a goody-goody, and I thought I had to save everyone. And I denied my own needs. It's great to help people if I'm taking care of myself. It works better that way. So the shame was basically, it wasn't guilt. The difference between guilt and shame is guilt is something I did, and shame is who I am, that I'm a bad person. So I was raised that I needed saving, and I was innately bad. But I also heard the message that I had talents, which is again doing, but talents and good qualities. So I was given double messages there. And speaking of different messages, the next part is about extremes. And oh, there was something else I was going to say about that. I'm sorry, I'm not as organized as I thought. Here we go. Let's read about my body and what choices I have around that. Would someone like to read?
My body. Codependency is a disease of extremes, employed in an attempt to overcome feeling inadequate. This is reflected in how we relate to our bodies. Some feel numb, disconnected, and apathetic. Others may fixate on perfecting their appearance, obsessively exercising, dieting, or having surgeries. In recovery, we can choose to explore our feelings about our bodies and learn new attitudes and behaviors. As we work the 12 steps, we can ask our higher power to be our ally in healing our relationship with our body.
I just wanted to talk about feeling inadequate with my body. And I, more than acting on exercise and dieting and having surgeries, I obsess about being smaller. I don't do it as much, and there is another program for that. But either I can work at something or I can obsess about working on something, but it's much better if I take action. So it talked about doing it too much, doing it to the extreme, whatever it is, dieting or exercising or eating, I guess. So would you continue reading the
Sure.
affirmation?
One, as I turn my attention to my physical body, I experience gratitude, appreciation, and love. 2, I accept my body as it is. 3, as I let go of negative thoughts I have had about my body, I feel at peace. 4, I ask my higher power to help me wrap my body in thoughts of love and comfort. 5, I forgive myself for judging my body as not good enough. 6, I let go of all worry about what others think of my appearance. 7, I have all the energy I need right now. 8, I treat my body with love and respect. 9, I take care of my body with adequate rest, exercise, and nutritious food. 10, when I feel overwhelmed, I remember to breathe deeply, let go, calm myself, and feel grounded in my body. 11, I feel a sense of wholeness and integration of my body, mind, and spirit. 12, I set physical boundaries. I say no when I don't want to be touched. When we are ready to move from body shame to acceptance, oh, I'm still going. We can read this prayer. Higher power, please remove my shame about my body and help me accept the beautiful creation that I am. Thank you.
Thank you. And as these affirmations were being read, I'm like, yeah, I should do that. Yeah, I should do that. And I could get overwhelmed and just say, I can't do this. But I can focus on one thing. There's a lot of days in the year. And there are a lot of affirmations in this booklet, but I can just focus on one every day. They say put Post-it notes on your mirror, but I put reminders in my phone that pop up every morning. I could put a different one in there every morning. So moving on to, my emotions. And would someone like to read about that?
My emotions. Many of us began our recovery in a jumble of emotions. Working steps 1 through 5 offers us a way to identify and accept our strong feelings. Some of the underlying dynamics that have led us to feel out of control become clear. Sharing and listening in Coda meetings and in meetings with our sponsor can help us learn to process and release some of the overwhelming intensity of our feelings. As we become ready, we ask our higher power to remove our shortcomings. We choose to take a leap of faith, letting go of the overwhelming feelings that have been holding us back. Number 1, I let go of wearing the mask that disguise my true feelings. 2, I'm learning healthy ways to feel and express my anger. 3, as I allow myself to grieve, my sadness rescinds, creating space for joy. 4, I feel, accept, express, and release my feelings. 5, I have the ability to receive and give love. 6, my feelings of fear are decreasing. 7, I am emotionally healthy. 8, I experience my emotions moderately. 9, I express my feelings honestly and respectfully. 10, I allow my feelings to flow through me without getting stuck. 11, my feelings are real and I handle them. 12, my higher power is my partner in healing overwhelming feelings. When we are ready to move from emotional shame to acceptance, we can say this prayer. Higher power, please remove my shame about my feelings and help me accept that they are valid and important. Thank you. Pass.
Yes. I, like I said, was depressed a long time, starting when I was 8. And I never thought it was okay to be sad. I thought I always had to be happy. So I had shame around my depression because I had so much to be grateful for. And some people don't have arms and legs, and I should be grateful that I do. That actually only made me more depressed. And the denial patterns really hit here that, first of all, trying to identify my feelings was difficult. And then I minimized, altered, or denied my feelings. And in my recovery, I embraced my feelings. They are valid and important. Like all those affirmations, I can accept that sometimes I'm not going to feel good. I'm going to feel grief or sadness or even anger, disappointment, just feel the gamut of emotions. And they're okay. I always tell myself it's not okay. I have to be good all the time or better. But that's not true. I can be okay with however I feel in the moment. And just, I can sit in that for a while until I'm ready to crawl out with help, usually. So yeah, my emotions can get overwhelming, and that's a good time to reach out. So let me pull up the next thing, which I'm sure is good. My thoughts. Well, I'll read this. My thoughts. Codependent thinking keeps me stuck. Thoughts can create the illusion that we are living in the past, prisoners of regret, resentment, and shame. Thoughts can keep us paralyzed by fear and dread of what we imagine is coming next. We cling to our codependent attitudes in an attempt to exert control over our lives, the lives of those close to us, and the future. In recovery, we discover our thoughts are not the boss. We can choose to change our thoughts, understanding dawns, and we live in the present, able to take action and leave the rest to our higher power's care. Oh, my thinking gets me in trouble sometimes when I do it in the darkness of my head all alone. And so I'm really grateful for meetings, for my sponsor, my recovery friends. And so I'm sorry I'm short on time. Yeah. So does somebody want to read the affirmations real quick, or?
I have the ability to make decisions. 2, I say no to old thoughts and replace them with new ideas. 3, my thoughts are more manageable. 4, I let my higher power take confusion from me and replace it with clarity and serenity. 5, I have confidence in myself. 6, I have my own opinions and can change them if I choose to do so. 7, with the help of my higher power, I release patterns of repetitive, obsessive thinking. 8, my thoughts are my own. 9, I trust my intuition as inspiration from my higher power. 10, other people's opinions are none of my business. 11, as I stop worrying about trying to fix everybody, my focus on myself improves. 12, I am free from confusion. I let my higher power take all confusion from me and replace it with peace, serenity, and confidence. When we are ready to move from shame to acceptance of our thoughts, we can say this prayer. Higher power, please remove my shame and guide my thoughts for the highest good. Thank you.
Basically, if you do want to get this booklet, you can get it from Core Publishing, and or go to the coda.org website. I love all the literature. There is actually a ton of Coda conference endorsed literature on almost every subject, and there's a couple new books coming, well, a new book and a new possibly, if it gets endorsed, a couple other things coming out. So if you're not a delegate and want to be a delegate and vote for it, you can chat with me later about being a delegate for your voting entity. Anyway, I digress again. I wanted to say we are, if you're familiar with In This Moment Daily Meditation book, we are writing a new one called Lighting Our Path. And I say we as in the fellowship is writing it. So if anybody's interested, again, you can either chat me or go write something, 100, 200 words, something, hopefully with a quote from Coda Literature, and then submit it to literature@coda.org. And I just want to say that I do have choices. My sponsor always reminds me of that here I am stuck in a problem and it just seems to be doomed. But she says, oh, let's look at your choices. And then we go through and, oh, I could do that, or I could not do that. And so I think that's all I have, and be happy to answer questions later. Thanks for letting me share.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael. I'm codependent. And it's a privilege to be here. I'm very grateful to have a chance to share my experience, strength, and hope with a focus on literature. It's always a privilege for me to share. It's probably the primary way I take action on my own recovery, besides praying and journaling, and talking to other fellowship members privately. Speaking to a group is a whole different, I mean, at least for me, it's a whole nother thing. It's very freeing for me. It's just the greatest thing ever, because I spent my whole life before I got into any kind of recovery, not talking to anybody about anything. That's what I learned how to do, you know, when I was a little boy. And it's been a process of freeing that idea and getting rid of that idea ever since. So I'm very grateful. Just for a little context, I came to Coda from another fellowship, from Alcoholics Anonymous, which by the time I was 11 or 12 years old, I needed a drink. And now I'm starting to understand why, because of my Coda recovery, which is great. And so I'm going to try and tie in my experience with Coda literature, because for me, it's the most important thing for learning, you know, any official literature for me. And I'm going to try and tie in my story and points in my story in the timeline where I read or heard something that somebody told me was in the literature, and how that helped me out, because that's a big part of my story. So like I said, I was an active alcoholic and drug addict for probably, I don't know, 15 years or so. And in my early 30s, I joined the other fellowship because I kept getting arrested, and I couldn't figure out why. But anyway, so I got my help there, and I learned about the 12 steps, and I recovered from my alcoholism and drug addiction. And I'm very grateful for that. I rediscovered a higher power that I didn't even know I had. But I have to confess, and this is nobody's fault, but for me, in my recovery, my first recovery experience, I always felt like there was something missing. And now I'm starting to understand that was my own, and I reacted to that by becoming ashamed. And I always felt like there was something missing, but I could never figure out what it was. And again, that's the key to my codependence. I always thought I had to figure everything out and figure it out perfectly, because then I would have my answers and then I would be okay, you know. So I was in my first recovery for 30 years almost, but I could never figure out why I didn't feel great. I was like, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why I didn't feel 100%. Like I always felt like there was something missing. And anyway, things happened. I had an emotional breakdown, and I wound up coming to Coda. And the very first thing that I read in the literature was probably at the first meeting. It was probably in the welcome, that I specifically heard them say that some of us have experience with other addictions, some of us do not. And that was good for me because it removed some uniqueness from me. And I also realized that a lot of the other people in the room weren't necessarily, didn't have the same experience I had, but I started to understand that we were all there for the same reason. So that was pretty good. I also specifically remember reading that some of us tried to treat our codependence with these substances, and that made a lot of sense to me. I was like, because when I removed those substances, for me, I realized now that, I was suffering from untreated codependence for a long time, and didn't understand why, and was completely unable to figure it out myself. It took what it took for me to get here for that. So that was a real revelation for me. And so I got a sponsor, and I started working the steps, and I've been almost this is my 5th year in Coda now, and I am actually it's funny because I'm actually in the middle of my fourth step, and I'd like to talk about the green book. That's really what I'm going to be talking about, and the method that I'm using to do my fourth step. In our fourth step, we have a couple of choices about the format we want to use, about how to do it. And the other thing that jumped out at me immediately, just as an aside, was our list of patterns and characteristics, all the patterns that we have. I remember the first time and how that's changed for me, because that's kind of what I'm going to focus on, how that's changed for me, because it's a good barometer of where I'm at in my recovery. I remember the first time reading it, I was overjoyed that all these patterns and characteristics, I was like, oh, this is definitely the right place for me. And some of them I didn't identify with, though. Some of them I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't apply to me. How could that even be? You know, and so that has evolved. I also want to say that the way I use literature is I'm a highlighter and date person, and that helps me out a lot, because I tend to remember what I've highlighted, and then later on I can go back and see the date, and I'll write a note next to it saying, what does this mean? And sometimes, like a year or two later, I'll have gotten some ideas about what it means, and I'll be like, oh, see, there's progress, because I need to be reminded about progress, my progress, because I tend to not notice it. I tend to think everything is still the same. So that's important for me. So in working through these patterns and characteristics, what I've come to understand is that, well, let me talk about this past month in particular, because I like to share about what's going on with me lately, and it involves the literature as well. Since it's the fourth month, I've been to a few meetings with, the fourth tradition, and the fourth tradition in the Green Book talks a lot about that is a dichotomy, this idea about autonomy versus versus unity. In other words, well, how does our group, how does what our group decide, how does that affect Coda as a whole? And one of the questions, and I shared about this the other night at a meeting, was that one of the questions in there was about how is my fourth step and the fourth tradition related? And it occurred to me that I've come to understand that they both require me, both of those things require me to be open and to have courage, because my step 4, as far as the characteristics go, they help me to love myself, okay, and the practicing the traditions with love helps me love others. And for me, my recovery is about having a relationship with myself and a higher power, like two together. And then once that I'm comfortable with that, then I find it's easier to have relationships and to love other people. So again, like I say, it for me, that particular idea in the fourth tradition helped me a lot. It helped me to see that I've actually made some progress with that. So I'm grateful about that. The other thing that has taught me is that nowadays I can look back and see that, shame is probably the number one emotion that I never understood the whole time I was in my first recovery. I never understood it because I could never recognize it in myself or own it in myself. It seemed to be something that other people talked about and that other people had, but I didn't even know what it was. And now I understand I was ashamed of my own shame. I was afraid of my shame. I was incapable of actually actually seeing that. And so working the literature using the patterns and characteristics has helped me be okay with myself. Because I go through each one of these characteristics and patterns, and like it's suggested in the green book is, you know, I write, there's 2 columns on my paper, you know, and one is, you know, how have I hurt myself with this pattern and characteristic? And then on the other side is how have I hurt others with the pattern and characteristic? And on the flip side of that, I decided to add underneath that, how do I love myself now with the recovery I have? And on the other side, how do I love others with the recovery I have so far as of today, as of the day I'm writing it down? And that really helps me a lot, because like I say, I won't necessarily know what I'm up to unless I write it down, and then I can look at it and go, okay. And it's helpful because I have dates on it at the same time. So that helps me see where I'm at. And then I talk about it in a meeting. I share it with other folks in Coda Recovery, and that's kind of how I work my program, you know. And I guess I am a little discombobulated today because of our late start and everything. I had some more ideas about what I wanted to speak about, but I guess I just want to finish up by saying, you know, I am grateful for all the literature, because the biggest thing that I've learned in recovery is that, you know, I don't know a lot, and that's okay. That used to frighten me. I used to think I had to know everything and know it all perfectly. And now I know that I don't, but I also know that that's okay. As long as I have a higher power, you know, and a fellowship to help me along the way, I don't need to go to that place where, you know, I think, well, where I think there's something wrong with me, to put it. That's kind of, because I will end up there, because it seems very comfortable to be thinking and feeling that way. But I have a choice nowadays. You know, I can go there and do the whole, you know, there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? All of that stuff, but it doesn't last long, as opposed to, you know, having that as a constant refrain going around and around in my head. So I am grateful for that. And I know that, the ideas that I get on a daily basis from all the Coda literature, and I love it all. I love it all because, because I was always very big on reading instructions and directions, but I'm starting to understand now that the main reason why I used to do that was because I was afraid of making a mistake. And I figured that would be my way of preventing that. And now I look at it as something that I'm learning, you know, something that I can use for my recovery, you know. So I'm grateful for that too. Anyway, I think that's about all I have. I want to say that I love you all, and I love Coda, and I love you guys, and I love the opportunity to share a little bit about my experience, strength, and hope. So thanks for listening, and I'll pass.